got three different fiscal problems. You've got the federal fiscal fiasco, you've got the state and municipal fiscal fiasco, and households are no different. They have their own version of a fiscal fiasco. The bigger problem is that as simple as these issues may be, our politicians are doing nothing to solve them effectively. With the federal government, it really boils down to the same thing that we experience at the level of households, which is if you have too many bills and not enough income, it's real easy what you have to change. Cut the budget. Cut the budget. Don't spend as much as you're spending. Last year, 2010, we spent $3.5 trillion, but our income was only $2 trillion from tax revenues. So the deficit of $1.5 trillion, again, this is fairly basic math, but we're simply spending more money than we're bringing in. The Congressional Budget Office has said it's going to be roughly $1 trillion per year for the next decade. So add to our current stock of debt, the 14, or if you choose, the 20.7 trillion, add to that $1 trillion per year for the next decade. The problem is these estimates have already proven to be too conservative. For 2011, it was supposed to be $900 billion. In 2011, the first surprise was that it was not $900 billion, but within the first couple of months, they revised it higher to $1.5 trillion. Now, who's counting a few hundred billion here and there, but $600 billion off the mark is saying something. It was only a month later that they revised it even higher to $1.65 trillion for the deficit this year. So while we can entertain the idea of simply tightening our belts and cutting the budget, the realities of bringing spending back in line with our national income are frankly not very realistic because the budget has been politicized. These are promises made by politicians. These are promises made by your legislators and mine. What typically happens is you turn one problem into an extended problem, a different kind of problem. If you don't have the bills to pay today, you borrow from the future. So we're addressing new debts being added to old and seeing that the problem is compounding on itself negatively. Rollover risk. All IOUs have a date at which they have to be paid back. When you have a bunch of IOUs that have to be paid back all at the same time, or the debt extended, rolled over, there you have rollover risk. With 70% of outstanding debts coming due over the next 36 months, and this is what I'm talking about, we've skewed maturities to where all the IOUs that we have been clustered, and we actually have to make payment on them or roll them over and extend the terms. 70% of outstanding debt comes due in the next 36 months. The social unrest we're witnessing in Europe, we can expect to see in the United States as well, as you see budget cuts and austerity measures put in place, the only other alternative to an outright default on debt. The fiscal issues at the federal level are certainly significant, but they do have an out, and we mentioned that out. It's simply that they can run the printing presses. If you don't have the money to pay, you print it, and you make payment anyways. Now, of course, that's like taking a shot of whiskey and throwing it in a bathtub. You have a dilutive effect. The shot of whiskey isn't quite as potent as it once was when you mix it with that much water. But you have that happening with our currency today when they print to pay, when they print to pay the bills that they have. The state and municipal levels are a very different situation altogether because they don't have a printing press.